Hi, I'm that kid in your psych class that you've probably never spoken to, and I'm here to tell you about neurons. This is a neuron. It's an electrically charged cell that delivers chemical messages throughout the brain and body. Neurons are the most basic unit of the nervous system, thus allowing for feeling and movement, as well as all those other things we can't get enough of, like breathing and eating. If this neuron is a single Lego block, then this Lego Star Destroyer represents the brain. Well, almost. The neuron, like most cells, is composed of many different parts that all serve a different function. This is the nucleus. It is the heart and soul of the cell. This long, shaft-like portion of the cell is called the axon. It's a highway for neural transmissions. Covering the axon is the myelin sheath. The sheath protects the axon and increases the speed of neural transmissions. Next is the cell body, the central part of the cell, which contains all the necessary parts for survival. These branch-like bits are called the dendrites. It is their job to receive chemical messages and send them down the axon, where they can be relayed to other neurons from the terminals. Impulses are sent from neuron to neuron through the use of neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are tiny chemical messages that neurons relay back and forth in order to create a sensation. However, after a neurotransmitter is fired, the neuron experiences something called the refractory period. Okay, think of it this way. Here's me. Now I'm in a field. Let's just add some wardrobe to set the tone. Can't forget the hat. And there's the cannon. But wait, it's a neuron cannon. Like a cannon, a neuron will fire a neurotransmitter like so. The neuron cannon will not be able to fire again until it has finished a long, tedious reload process. That is the refractory period. Life without neurons would be a rather difficult one. We wouldn't be able to use any of our senses, move, or feel. We'd just lumber around all day like a blobfish.
Okay, so the cerebral cortex, what is it? Well, to put it in short terms, it's the thin outer surface of the cerebrum that's 1 to 2 millimeters thick that consists of gray matter or neuron clusters. Now, it's not actually what you see here. This is the cerebrum. What it actually is just a thin coating surrounding the cerebrum. It's divided into two main sections, the left and right hemispheres, which you can see here, which are almost identical to each other. Then, even broken up into four more main lobes. The temporal lobe, which is in the bottom half of the brain, is related to auditory processing and tasks. The parietal lobe, located in the top back portion of the brain, which is located to sensory information as well as language processing. The frontal lobe, self-explanatory, located in the front portion of the brain, which is related to problem solving, memory, and judgment. And finally, the occipital lobe, located in the back of the brain, which is related to visual tasks. Now, the cerebral cortex also has 6 layers to it, which are in order: the molecular layer, which contains the cell bodies of neuroglial cells; the external granular layer, which contains small granular and pyramidal cells; the medial pyramidal layer, which contains pyramidal cells arranged in row formation. The cell bodies of some association fibers are found here. The internal granular layer, which has the same structure as the external granular layer; the ganglionic layer, which contains small granular cells, large pyramidal cells, as well as the cell bodies of some association fibers; and finally the fusiform/multiform layer, where axons enter white matter. Its function is currently unknown. Even though this is only a thin layer covering the cerebrum, it's related to many other structures in the brain. An example is the thalamus, which helps relay the info from the brainstem and the spinal cord to the cerebral cortex, as seen here highlighted in pink. Now, science speaking, the cerebral cortex is just a bunch of neurons that store, process, and remember information through a cohesive neural network. It contains bulges called gyri that create deep fissures called sulci, as seen in all of these lines in here. These fissures add to the brain's surface area, increasing gray matter, therefore increasing the amount of info you can process. To put it in simpler terms, the cerebral cortex allows the brain to function at a higher level involved with memory, language, creativity, emotion, attention, and judgment. Now, if someone wanted to identify the cerebral cortex, they can observe a person's decisions, creativity, and how good their memory is. The cerebral cortex is so important that if you didn't have one, there could be terrible consequences, such as anencephaly, apraxia, seizures, loss of senses, and difficulty walking. To conclude, the cerebral cortex is one of the most important parts of your brain that you can't live without. It helps you do simple and complicated tasks, and it helps you process info. It is essential to life, and without it, life would be a huge deficit.
The myelin sheath, also known as the white matter of the brain, is located around the axon of a neuron or nerve. It allows electrical impulses to transmit quickly or efficiently along the nerve cells. Put in simpler words, it insulates the nerves so messages send properly. It is related to the Schwann cell in the peripheral nervous system because the myelin sheath is actually formed from the cell membrane of the Schwann cell. Loss of the myelin sheath is called demyelination. This is a result of many autoimmune diseases such as multiple sclerosis, transverse myelitis, and many more. Common symptoms of demyelination are loss of vision, a tingling or numbness throughout a specific body part, known as neuropathy, heat sensitivity, fatigue, and loss of dexterity. Living after demyelination is extremely hard. You may lose the ability to do things you previously took for granted, such as driving, seeing, or even moving an arm or leg. You may have to start relying on other people a lot more than you previously did.
I'm the hypothalamus and I kind of form a band with the pituitary gland. I'm set right below the thalamus and above the gland. I intermingle by sending signals to the pituitary gland. This is how I make the endocrine and nervous system work hand in hand. More about the gland, I can both phone and clone to create more hormones, especially the oxytocin and bisphoricin, and fundamentals the stem to connect with the pituitary gland. Scientifically, I maintain and sustain homeostasis, internally balancing the body on a daily basis by producing and releasing existing hormones, stimulating the essential bodily process. Yes, I have many more functions. I set decisions for the system, systematically adjusting tons of different parts. Importantly, I regulate people's heart rate and current body state. A little off topic, but especially your body weight. I can control your appetite and also your electrolyte, not to measure your temperature as well as your central blood pressure. During the sleep cycle, you snooze. Daily, so your psychological state doesn't blow a fuse. I feel like I'm losing you because I'm confusing you. I can make you both young and hungry, as you can see. I receive signals from the body. I can make you eaten by using the ghrelin and stopping you by sending the leptin. Another ability in my station is the temperature regulation. So when you walk out into the cold, you will shiver, unlike the frontal lobe. Imagine living life without me. You would never know when you're hungry. I am the one that makes you go through puberty, not to mention I'm the most important one in this community.
It's the frontal lobes. And I'm on the track. Now game you're just to talk and lay on some facts. What you think you're tough? Trying to step to me? I got a plethora of jobs, man. Can't you see? I'm emotion recognition and self-awareness, judgmental, logic, man, I thought it was apparent. Motor function and impulses do. Social and behaviors and morals, who knew? I separate us from the rest of these animals. I'm the one that makes us interaction sound unmistakable. You straight up laughable, you can't touch me. I'm just too adaptable. The world's invaluable. I'm merely fallible. These bars and I'm spitting, you can call me fanatical. Central slow gets to the prefrontal cortex. I'm at the front because I'm just that important. Yeah, you think civilization would exist without me? I'm responsible for Socrates, Aristotle, Newton, Einstein, and Rousseau. I'll make greater minds in the future, who knows? Don't get dejected, but this is expected. They call me excited, don't want to be messing. I am respecting all of these neurons, but not getting connecting, so standing the attention, fitting heavy from Booker's area. Far so sick that I call it malaria. I swear you won't forget it, cause it's the frontal lobe that said it.
The dendrites are branch projections of neurons which are located in the central nervous system for propagating electrochemical stimulation. Other structures that the dendrites are related to include the cell body. The dendrites send the message directly to the cell body, which has a nucleus containing the central part of a neuron. The axon is a lumpy fiber that passes messages from the cell body to other neurons, muscles, or glands. The action potential comes into place when a neuron is sending a message through the axon. The myelin sheath is a fatty white substance that surrounds the axons and acts and aids in speeding neural impulses. They also protect axons. The terminal branches are the axons ending long branches. This branch connects with other cells by synapsing with dendrites. They also send messages to other neurons. In order for a neuron to become active, the dendrites play a vital role. Electronic messages can come into two types of forms, such as excitatory and inhibitory. After receiving the messages, the dendrites send them to the cell body, then to the axon, and finally to the terminal branches. The terminal branches then send this message to another neuron through synapses. When the electronic impulses come to the synapse, it releases neurotransmitting or chemical messengers that connect to receptor sites in the receiving neuron. It's kind of like a key going inside a lock to open a door. As long as you're alive and can communicate within the environment, we all know that your dendrites are functioning. For example, the fact that you move your hand from a hot flame shows that your dendrites are communicating within the body, which then tells your hand to move away from the flame. Without dendrites, there will be no interaction within the body. We will stop breathing, feeling excitement and pain.
One of the four main regions of the cerebral cortex is the temporal lobe. It's located at the bottom middle part of the cortex, right beneath the lateral fissure. If we're looking at a view of a person, it would be right behind the temples of the ears. The structure of the temporal lobe can be separated into three regions. There's the superior temporal gyrus, the mid-temporal gyrus, and the inferior temporal gyrus. The middle and the inferior temporal gyrus can perceive moving objects, such as a baseball moving in a direction, and recognize faces, such as you could recognize your mother or your father. The next part that it's related to is the hippocampus. It's at the center of the temporal lobe, and it can process short and long-term memory and spatial navigation. The purpose of this lobe is involved in processing hearing and selective listening, like when your mom tells you to clean your room and you just don't listen to her. This also helps to comprehend speech and make sense of words and make sense of different pitches and music. It's also associated with memory for verbal skills. If you were to live without the temporal lobe, or if there was damage, such as to the left side or the right side, you wouldn't be able to recall visual or verbal information. It would disrupt the recognition of words, and it would impair the ability for memory of verbal skills. If the right side was damaged, there would be a decreased ability of tone and musical abilities, and it would also affect the ability to recognize visual content and impair ability to perform artistically. Lastly, if there was very serious damage to the temporal lobe, such as a seizure, it would cause effects of the personality. Like if somebody was usually very happy, they would become very moody. Also, if there was temporal epilepsy, it could cause perturbative speech, like repetition of words, paranoia, or aggressive behavior.
The cerebellum, also known as the little brain, is located under the occipital lobe in the back of the brain. The cerebellum receives information through the spinal cord. The cerebellum helps judge time and adapt fine-tuned motor skills, such as taking a piece of paper and cutting it in half with scissors. It can also help with balance and coordination. It is also very good at learning a new skill, such as hitting a baseball with a baseball bat, or even learning a new skill, such as kicking a soccer ball. The cerebellum can help with muscle coordination and motor movements, and it can also help with smooth muscle activity, such as simply just walking. If damaged, you could have trouble completing simple tasks, and you can have a hard time maintaining your balance. The cerebellum is split into three main parts. Those three parts are the anterior lobe, then the posterior lobe, and then the flocculus. And that is the cerebellum.
The amygdala. So what is it? It's an almond-shaped set of neurons located within the temporal lobes of the brain. There are two amygdalae, one in each hemisphere of the brain. It's part of the limbic system along with the hippocampus and the hypothalamus, which manages a lot of functions like emotion, memory, and behavior. The amygdala plays a major role in managing and processing emotions, particularly fear, Of course, it can manage other emotions like anger or sadness, but fear is most studied. So why does this matter? Well, the amygdala helps us to respond quickly to danger or threats. When posed by a threat, the amygdala gets information from our senses, from our sensory systems like the auditory, olfactory, and visual systems. It then responds to such external stimuli and prompts our fight or flight response through the endocrine system and the nervous system. For example, let's talk about all these creepy clowns that are coming up on the news. If you encountered one of these killer clowns, would you A, fight the clown, B, run away, or C, go on a rampage with the clown? If you chose answer C, I think you should stop watching this video and go see a professional. All joking aside, the amygdala processes the sensory information and fear is induced, prompting the body to prepare for danger. The pituitary glands and the endocrine system release hormones like cortisol and epinephrine to trigger certain physical responses. Because of the fear, the sympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system is activated and reacts to the danger by accelerating body processes. Information stored by the amygdala controls other emotional responses. Information and hormones released go to the hippocampus, allowing for a more strong or emotional memory to be stored. An emotional response like fear could come from similar things, like seeing Mr. Provenzano in the hallway and realizing that you didn't do your psych homework. Even an originally neutral stimuli like that becomes associated with certain emotions because of the memory system of the amygdala. Without the amygdala, we might not have a fight or flight response. We wouldn't be able to sense danger because we would have a complete lack of fear. So the next time your life is saved because of responses induced by fear, thank your amygdala.
The pituitary gland is the most influential gland in the endocrine system and is often referred to as the master gland. It is a pea-sized protrusion located in the hypothalamus, attached at the bottom of the brain. The pituitary gland consists of two parts, called lobes, known as the anterior pituitary and the posterior pituitary. The pituitary gland is related to the hypothalamus because it is under the control of it, and it also relates to the glands of the endocrine system, such as the thyroid glands, the adrenal glands, the ovaries, and the testes, because it regulates them. The main purpose of the pituitary gland is to regulate growth and monitor the endocrine glands. Without the pituitary gland, life would be full of too much or too little. Because the gland regulates the release of hormones, a person would either have too many hormones or too little hormones released.
The adrenal glands are a pair of endocrine glands that sit just above the kidneys in the retroperitoneum. People often refer to the adrenal glands as the producers of adrenaline, the hormone that fills them with energy and excitement in terms of bodily stress. This includes sporting events, big tests, and so on. The purpose of the adrenal glands is to help the body deal with stress and stressful events. This is completed by producing hormones that help the human body regulate blood sugar levels and blood pressure, burn protein and fat, as well as react to stress-inducing events such as illnesses or injuries. The adrenal glands are made up of the inner medulla, which produces adrenaline and noradrenaline, and the outer adrenal cortex that produces aldosterone, cortisol, and androgens that help arouse the body in times of stress. In relationship to the rest of the body, the adrenal glands are part of the endocrine system, which is just a collection of glands. Furthermore, the inner medulla is driven by the sympathetic nervous system via fibers in the thoracic spinal cord. People can live without the adrenal glands. They will usually get removed due to diseases caused by dysfunctions in the gland, through producing incorrect amounts of hormones. Without the gland, people have to take supplements of hydrocortisone and other medicines to make up for the lack of natural release of these hormones.
I had the medulla oblongata for my project. So the medulla is pronounced medulla, like Medusa. Thank you to Enrica, who taught me how to say it. So, it controls your breathing and it controls your heartbeat. Therefore, it controls the most vital parts of your body. The location and the shape. It is found in the back brain and anterior to the cerebellum, between the pons and the spinal cord. There's no definite end or start to the medulla because the spinal cord just gradually turns into it. They are cone-shaped neuromasses. Here you can find it, the side view next to the pons and the front view of the brainstem with the medulla. The general function. It controls involuntary functions like coughing, vomiting, and sneezing. It controls your heartbeat and your breathing. Other activities include control of movement, relay of somasensory information to the internal organs, and control of arousal of sleep. That's why it's said by scientists that it's the most important part of the brain. Structures it's related to. Lowest part of the brainstem. It's connected by the pons to the middle brain. It delivers nerve signals between the brain and the spinal cord, and it consists of myelinated and unmyelinated neurons. And these myelinated neurons form the reticular formation. Fancy science talk. It's divided into two parts, the ventral medulla, which is the front, and the dorsal medulla, which is the back. The dorsal medulla consists of the 7 vast cranial nerves. Pyramids, which lie in the pyramid tracks, are found in the ventral medulla, and the olivary bodies are also found here. As you move down the medulla, you find a decomposition of pyramids, and you can find it here in the front view once again of the medulla and a cross section of the medulla. So what would we do without it? Simple. No heartbeat, no breathing, you're dead. If the medulla is slightly moved, you get partial paralysis. If the medulla gets hit, it's a loss of touch and position senses. And if it doesn't work properly, well, you have difficulties in respiration, blood pressure, and swallowing. So fun facts. Hardest type of brain damage to cure, if you hurt the medulla, plays a role even in the maintenance of balance, and the medulla is found in all the brains of all vertebrate animals. That's just how important it is. These are my citations. Thank you for watching, and never forget.
Hey, Vsauce, Kevin here. Cells make us who we are. They are the building blocks of life. Yet, what is inside of a cell? Inside of cells, you have a nucleus. The nucleus is the center of a cell. Now, within that nucleus, you have 23 pairs of chromosomes. But within these chromosomes, you have DNA.
A man goes riding by.
You see, DNA is kind of like a ladder structure. On the outside, you have a sugar group and a phosphate group that alternate. And on the inside, you have 4 nitrogenous bases. You have adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. These are the instructions that make you, you. You see, instead of being in a ladder shape like you'd expect DNA to be in, it's actually in a double helix shape. This is because the sugar groups within that molecule bond to each other, and the nitrogenous bases need to be on the inside so that they're protected from water. Now, DNA makes us us, but what else does it do? DNA contains information that's vital for reproduction, development, and survival. DNA contains strands of information called genes. These genes, in turn, make proteins. Proteins are vital for us to survive. They carry out our very basic functions. How do they make these proteins, might you ask? You're about to find out. See, enzymes go across these genes and they read the information and transcribe it into mRNA. Now, mRNA takes this information and changes it into something that amino acids can read. And then, the 20 amino acids can reorganize themselves into a strain to build a protein. And these proteins carry out basic life functions. But here's the catch. You see, only 1% of DNA actually contains the information to make proteins. What's in the other 99%? Truth is, we really don't know. Although we conducted massive experiments like the human genome experiment, the DNA is just a new frontier. So, let's go inside.
Hey Vsauce, I'm Kevin, and today we're going to be talking about chromosomes. What is a chromosome? Let's get the definition. A thread-like structure of nucleic acids found in the nucleus of most living cells. Well, we can break that down. A thread-like structure, that comes from its shape. It's shaped like an X. Now, you have a total of 46 chromosomes in a nucleus. That's 23 pairs of 2. But what does a chromosome do? Well, it carries the instructions for all parts of your body. It does crazy things, like determine your gender, your height, your weight, your metabolism, and all sorts of bodily functions. Even controls your brainstem. talk about why chromosomes are important. I mean, they're basically everything. They're what makes you. They're instructions for your body to make up who you are. But they're not always right 100% of the time. Genetic and chromosomal diseases came as part of this, like XYY, Down syndrome, Tay-Sachs, cystic fibrosis, all things that can go wrong with chromosomes. Well, that shows you what they are. It shows you what they can do. The good, the bad, but you might be asking, what's the bigger picture? What can they make up? Well,
hey, Vsauce, Michael here. DNA and chromosomes help give the instruction to the whole body in order to make itself. And one of these parts is the brainstem. The brainstem is located in the back of the skull, where the spine swells into the brain and helps control involuntary functions necessary for life, like heart rate, breathing, and also involuntary reflexes, like vomiting and sneezing. Speaking of the medulla, the pons connects the medulla to the midbrain and helps send other sensory information to higher levels of brain function. The pons also plays a role in REM sleeping, and on top of that, the depth of how someone breathes. The midbrain plays an important function in motor movements and also plays an important role in auditory and visual reflexes, like moving your eyes when you turn your head or turning your head to hear something better. Now you know all the basic building blocks of life, from the DNA to the brainstem. And as always, thanks for watching.